My name is Manuel Delgado, Jr. I'm a native Arizonan.
My name is Jeanne Manuel Delgado. I was born and raised in Arizona. I'm fourth generation native Arizonian. I lived kind of in the outskirts of Glendale first. My mom's from Washington, D.C., and my dad was from Arizona. And he moved us to Peoria, so I started in Peoria in fourth grade.
I call her an Okie. She was a cowgirl.
I was a cowgirl.
We
I rode my horses.
Very different backgrounds.
Very
obviously.
different. I am one of three siblings. My dad was an actor stuntman through Legend City, and where my dad rode the train around and robbed it, and then ran across Legend City to do the little stunt show on the other side. But that was like fourth grade. So from fourth grade to eighth grade, we lived right there where Centennial High School was. We swam in the canals, we picked cotton, and we kind of like played in the fields, the orange groves. We even rode our horses. There wasn't that much traffic, so we used to ride our horses all the way to Thunderbird Park. In eighth grade, I moved. My dad picked us up and moved us out to Lake Pleasant. And he said, this is where we're gonna live. I'm going to build Old Tucson out here. And it's gonna be called Ron Nix's A Day in the West. And they've called it Cowtown too, but it was my dad's dream in creating this movie ranch.
It was a movie set, right?
Mm-hmm. It was a movie ranch and a movie set. And so it's still there.
I grew up in Dogtown, and we didn't have horses. That particular neighborhood had a reputation. The drugs, individuals who had gone to prison, gang activity.
He actually had no air, no heating.
It was a very tough neighborhood, but there was a lot of family. My mother's mother lived across the street of where we ended up growing up.
I called it In-Law Street for me.
Right? And then there was Aurora Osuna,
Chubby.
also known as Chubby. My other grandparents lived in the next house. They moved over to where the next house was, which was my aunt and uncle Pete and Terry.
People have a bad, stigma about the area, but yet it was a family.
You had an influence from the whole barrio, and you didn't go unfed. If you were hungry, you could go to the neighbor's house and they were going to feed you. There was a lot of things that I learned in that neighborhood, life lessons that I wouldn't trade. The family unity, the work ethic that we were taught there was something that I don't think I would have learned anywhere else. At the time that we were attending school, there was a divide, right? There was a divide between the cowboys and the Mexicans. I'm not going to say it wasn't allowed, but there was some tension if you crossed that line, but we crossed the line anyway.
We crossed the line. Met Manuel in 1979 at Peoria High School. So we're actually celebrating our 40th anniversary in January, but we've been together since 79.
So you met me, but I had my eye on you before that, but go ahead.
Yeah, there were some things that we didn't get to do because we didn't have the money. And I know sometimes we'd want to go on a date or whatever, and we would, wash windows.
We were married a year out of high school?
Yeah, like almost 2 years. Starting a family earlier than we expected.
Yeah, it's not something we had planned out, but it's something that we took and we ran with. We didn't move far.
No, we didn't move far, and it's because we still had a connection to Peoria.
Those were our roots, and they were positive roots. My grandfather, God bless him again, and I don't mean this in a bad way, couldn't understand that going to school was beneficial. At one point I had a teacher, and he was asking me, and I won't mention his name, what I wanted to be, and I was like a freshman in high school. And I told him, I'd like to be an attorney, and he laughed. It was difficult for me to justify, right? Because I'm thinking I need to go back to work because these are the things that I was taught. But fortunately, my parents and yourself were changing the mindset, and it was, look, you're not going to advance unless you get an education.
I got a job at KWAO radio station, and so I was the receptionist. Mr. Gonzalo, who pulled me out of being a secretary because he knew that I wanted to become a teacher. He arranged my schedule in order for me to go to Glendale Community College. And I went there and became a teacher, but I couldn't have done it. Till this day, Mr. Gonzalo is a mentor of mine.
He's a mentor of both of ours. It was always my life passion to teach and coach. I thought that's where I was going to end up in my life, but it didn't necessarily work out that way. Getting ready to do my student teaching, and ran into a professor, Dr. Haas, who decided to have a conversation with me about attending law school. Changed the direction of my life, became a practicing attorney with a small firm in Glendale, and I started off over at the Glendale City Court, worked there for 6 or 7 years and left to go to teach at Peoria High School. That had been my passion. I thought that was my calling, and I lasted all of 8 months.
He resigned. First he said, I have to do PowerPoints. I can only teach for 10 minutes, and you want me to stop these kids after every 10 minutes and do an activity? Yeah, so he didn't like all the other extra stuff.
I got a phone call from the city of Glendale, again, Judge Burkholder, and he had told me that another judge had retired. So I applied for the judicial position and got that. I recently retired.
But he's still with the coaching. It's a passion.
Part of it was because Gonzalo was trying to help me get through school, and he would actually pay me, right, to coach. So I was getting a little bit of money, and that started it. But I've never stopped. I've been in the coaching program for 30 years.
So I'm 33 years in education right now, and I can't see myself slowing down. I make my students, even though it's not part of it, I always made my students do mandatory community service. At Peoria High School, I started doing the St. Mary's Food Bank. And we would take them to Fresh Start Church, 83rd and Greenway.
That's right.
And they would serve and do the food drive. I did that for years. So we serve about 100 families every second Wednesday of the month.
And you promised me when she retired that you were going to slow down, right? And let me see. We've got food drive,
I got blood drive next week.
The list goes on.
I have a service dog training program.
Service dog training program. Jeanne is the one that taught me about community service and made me reflect on the individuals that fed into my life and made me understand you got to give back. That what makes you relevant and what leaves your legacy is how you help other people.
I always tell students, I tell them my story because I want them to know that sometimes life just knocks you down, but you have to keep going.
You got to find a way.
You can't stop. Nothing's impossible.
Nothing's impossible.